vulnerability to express who the challenges that they have. And the problem with the dismissive, for example, they don't like to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so for them, they might not want to sit down and explain, when you do this, it hurts.
Yeah.
When you don't do this, that. They're not going to sit there. They don't have that emotional capacity. So for the dismissive and the
fearful.
not the fearful, not the fearful.
Avoidant?
The secure. We're talking about
secure. Okay.
Right. So for the dismissive and the secure to be in relationship, it's going to be very difficult for the secure to even understand what they want, because the secure is going to be used to emotional connection. They're going to be used to people loving them, and they actually look for it because they deserve it. They feel they deserve to be connected to in a healthy way emotionally. Now, they're not clingy and they don't get crazy when the dismissive avoidant does his thing. They might talk to them. And so if the dismissive avoidant is willing to listen to the secure, then there's a chance that they could work. But the only problem is that the secure also has to be very careful. It's like tiptoeing around a person eggshells, because the dismissive person they can't take criticism. They take it very personally. So depending on how they express their needs or their concerns, the dismissive person might take it if it's something that they don't feel like they're being threatened or criticized, if the way that it was expressed, then they may be able to fit into what the secure person wants. But if it is said, which normally the anxious will do, is like they lash out.
Yeah.
Lash out. I want to hurt you because you hurt me, right? And I think so. You might say you're so cold and distant. You're so why are you always cold and distant? Whereas if the secure individual can go, I feel really alone in this relationship. I would like for you to be more present with me, so that we have deeper contact, stuff like that. So therefore, it might not sound as
criticizing, just like an attack. It feels like an attack, yeah.
So it might not sound as critical if the secure is able to do that with the dismissive. And if any attachment style is able to do that, it will be the secure.
But they can, over time, become more secure. What about the fearful avoidant? Can they become more secure?
The fearful avoidant is the most difficult one because they're carrying those two different sides of them. And they can become more secure for sure, but it's more work for them because they're working on two different kind of attachment styles, not just like that one. So they have this anxious, and also it depends on, as I don't know if I mentioned, it depends on who they're with in a relationship with, on how they show love, how they express themselves. And the thing, because the one thing that they have to really get really sealed is that they need to be comfortable with not emotions, but they need to be comfortable not feeling that every time, trusting people. It's really a matter of trust.
Yeah.
Because they lack trust. They can express their emotions very well. Fearful avoidant can express their emotions very well. But it's a lack of trust that really scares them. Because they were never able to trust their caregivers. In a fearful avoidant attachment style, that child grew up in a very volatile home. They may not even see their parents for a couple of days, and then they appear and disappear and appear and disappear. They couldn't trust that person is going to be for them. The only time they got validated emotionally is when that child does something. Meaning, a lot of the kids who grew up to be fearful avoidant, they were the mothers to their siblings because their parents was missing in action, whether it be by they're totally drugged out, right? Or they're narcissist is just me, all of me. I'll go to the party because I don't care what happened to you. I'll go to the party and stay out all night. Or they are just not emotionally connected to the person. So the only time they got validation was when, say, for example, the mother was being abused by the father. So the mother would come to the baby and, oh yeah, you're here for me, and feels, and I use it as like a comfort thing.
Yeah.
That child at that time will feel connected to his mom, but it's only because she wants that connection. It's never reciprocated. She's taking that. She's not giving it back. She's just taking from the child. So that child who's fearful avoidant grows up in relationships to be people pleasers.
Yeah.
And very attuned to other people's feelings. They're very attuned to your feelings because that's how they survived. They knew want somebody to comfort them, so they might go and hug them and pat them on the back and hug them and whatever it might be. And the mother might use them as a little comfort thing, blanket, right? Too. So all of these things, they grow up not trusting relationships, just not trusting relationships. So even though they want the relationship, they crave relationships. But even when the relation comes too, emotionally, like too close, and they start feeling suffocated, and they just feel that they have to leave.
Yeah, and they'll find a way to push you away as well.
Find a way to push you away.
Yeah, and what's funny about these to me is that they reiterate what you feel as an anxious, preoccupied, what they reiterate that. So that need to feel love, that anxiety that it may end, or that, this person is not interested, or whatever anxiety you have towards the love, it's almost reinforced by the actions of these other types of attachment styles that aren't secure. It's literally reinforced. So it's like, you're right. You almost feel, it makes you feel right, And I guess that's what we do. We do things so we can feel right. So you attract this type of love. You got to be right, But wow, I never looked at it in that way.
And we are attracted to what is familiar as well. We don't recognize it that we're attracted to all these people. But if you've heard the stories that a young woman will be attracted to a man that looks like her, is like similar to her dad.
Yeah.
So that is what is familiar. That is what they see as children as what love is supposed to look like. So they're now attracted subconsciously. It's not something they go out to do. And any of us go out looking for. It's right. Subconsciously. And until we become aware that this is what is happening, then we cannot change it.
It just back in that cycle. Yeah. I've been in that cycle, like a hamster in a wheel. So what are some steps? Like, where do we start? What are some steps to becoming more securely attached?
So for the different attachment styles, there's going to be, it's all falling down to the trauma that they suffered, that to heal them, right?
Yeah.
Because the anxious preoccupied is more, one of the core wounds is self-abandonment, right? Yeah. So now that means that you look for your validation from others outside of yourself. You never validate anything about yourself. You always see that you kind of leave yourself behind and focus intensely on others. So if you have a partner, you focus on their needs and their whatever it might be. If it's at work, you'll self-abandon to that as well. So you don't take care of yourself. Yeah. So you have to learn now to look at, what about you? What do I need to do for myself? What am I looking for in someone else? Then I need to do that to myself. I want validation. I need to validate when I do something good. Validate that, you know what, you're a good person. You're maybe there's stuff messed up in your life, but you're generally a good person and you really care for others. You need to validate those things about yourself. Otherwise, if you're looking for it from others, you're always going to be disappointed. The other thing is the anxiety around relationships. You have to now learn that how to control your thoughts, because it's that thought. We are coming from a past that is, and we've been doing this way of living. We've been living this anxiety thing and reinforcing it in every single relationship we go in, right? So now, to understand, we automatically think certain things when we see or when we experience something. If our spouse or partner is late, we think they're cheating or stuff like that, right? So now what you have to think is this true, this thought? So you almost have to look at the thought as outside of yourself, almost like you're having a conversation with it. Is this thought that I'm having true? Well, I don't know if it's true. It's just something I'm thinking. So it's not true, right? Okay, so what else could have happened why the person is late?
Yeah.
So by the time you start questioning your thought, you've now taken back your power over the thought instead of the thought having power over you. And it works every time, but this has to be done every single time a thought. Those usual thoughts, and those thoughts are usually the same thoughts over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
They build a story. They build a whole story for themselves. So it's the same thought every time. Yeah.
So you also it also depends on the meaning you give to that thought. You can also change it there. If you say, okay, this person might be cheating on me, right? Then you have a certain emotion, which results in a behavior or some other way you talk, whatever you say, right? Whereas if you give the meaning of that thought, this person is late, I hope they're not in an accident, I hope they're safe, maybe there's a lot of traffic, that's different. So you behave in a different way. So these are things that you have to do on a consistent basis every time a thought comes and you start feeling that emotion. Usually the first thing you sense is the emotion.
Yeah.
Right?
So don't ride with that thought.
Yeah. And you feel the emotion. That's what can trigger you. So when you're trying to change your attachment style, always pay attention to the emotion because everything goes so quickly. The experience, the thought we put to that experience, the meaning we give to that experience, and then all of a sudden we are interacting without even recognizing that there were steps before where we could have stopped it and changed what we did. So you have to slow down the process, slow it down, and go back and say, okay, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? What was I thinking to be feeling this?
Yeah.
And then you change it. What was I thinking? You can change a meaning, or you can change just by questioning the thought. Is this true? What if it's not true? What evidence do I have that it's true?
That is true, right?
See? So all of these questions also slow down the process and puts you back in control of your thoughts versus your thoughts controlling you.
Running rampant, right? What about I'm listening.
For the which one?
I was gonna say, what about for fearful avoidant?
Fearful avoidant. Now, I will go for the dismissive first because since the fearful have both sides, well, what you have to do for the fearful is what I'm going to tell you about it. What I told you about the anxious, and what I'm going to tell you about the dismissive.
Okay.
Right? So the dismissive person now, their problem is trust as well, right? And also criticism, and they don't like that emotion. The most important thing is that they cannot tolerate emotional intimacy. So now they have to, it's hard for them because I mean, it's that somebody really wants to have to need to change for them to really do it from the stance of the dismissive, because they always run away from being vulnerable. And they will actually look at people who are weak and emotional as weak. So for them, it's difficult for them it depends on their partner, if the partner is understanding and, to be able to go to any distance to be vulnerable. And what they have to do is to really sit down with their partner and say, I have this issue. I don't know. I never learned how to really, whatever it is. And just being comfortable with being uncomfortable, showing those emotions. And I always say to take it small, baby steps. So you're watching TV. If you normally sat over in the other chair, go sit by your partner and hug, even if it feels practiced at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Continue doing it. Start with a little hug, and maybe just little by little you do things that require emotional connection.